What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Omnic Lab. This week, we have a new show for you with a new guest. And just like normal, this is a strategic Overwatch podcast. We talk about the game in a little bit of a different way than maybe you're used to. A little bit less news, a little bit more strategy. And man, this is going to be exciting because we got special guest, KickedTripod of Overwatch League Daily, the soothing, silky voice, sometimes gracing his presence on Tempo Storm, and for some Hearthstone content over at Well Met. John, welcome to the show, my man. What's up?
I'm actually Rob. If you look at the stream, I'm actually Rob right now. So
wow. That's even more flattering.
You are right.
Hey,
we're just throwing the listeners for a loop.
Episode
we had the wrong
85,000 of Omnic Lab.
91.
91. Man, you guys are almost to 100.
Yeah, it's coming up pretty soon here.
We are getting
close.
there. Yeah, it's been a minute. Actually, it's really nice to have you because you've been a friend of the show for a really long time. I think I was going through my tweet history just because I was curious the other day to see what my first tweet ever was. And one of the first tweets that I have in there comes from you saying, one of my favorite shows to listen to is Hearthaholics from I Play Games. And that really threw me back. I was like, wow, I was doing that like 2.5 years ago, and I think that's how long. Yeah, that's how long we go back. But regardless, this is the first time that you are in the show, so we're super happy to have you.
It is, and it's funny because when we started doing the payload, one of the first people I reached out to was Andres, and he said no.
It wasn't that I
wanted. Guys, show's over. We have internal conflict.
Let's talk about this right now.
Thanks for putting me in the spot right over here.
This is the real reason.
I do remember this. I do remember this. Right when Overwatch was about to start.
You had already committed.
Right.
It was fine. I just thought I just wanted to bust your chops one more time.
I think Rob was like 2 days earlier than you that he reached out to me. Really? He was like, "Hey, I want to start." Well, 2 days earlier when he came up with like the whole idea and everything was ready. I think we had talked about it like a month ago, but that was the time we were like, okay, here, it's ready. Let's go. And then 2 days later, I think John reached out to me. He's like, hey, I'm doing the payload. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. But I kind of just committed with Rob.
Oh, wow.
It's a funny story.
I will say the payload will go down in history as having the greatest podcast for Overwatch name. The name was good. Omnic Lab
at
for
least
me is
3
second.
people are on the payload for that show every week,
yeah.
right?
It's just
that's more people than
breath of
in
fresh air.
comp.
Yeah. Definitely.
I will say I definitely miss listening to the show on my feed. You guys just had a different take on stuff, and it was a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, Rosh and I would just go at it every week. It was great.
That's all I listened to.
He's just finding ways to make fun. Rosh is like, seriously, that show has made her like my little sister at this point. So
that's funny.
Gotta love the relationships you make in podcasting, boys.
Yeah, they're long lasting. Some of the people that I podcast with are now, some of my best friends that I have right now.
Well, just to transition a little bit here, in case you're new, my name's Rob, and my co-host here is Andres. I'm patched in from Japan. Andres is in Georgia. John is in
Denver,
the thick of the Rocky Mountains, all the way up in Denver.
Great city.
Covered in snow, or at least his house is.
So here's how Denver winters work. It's snow, melted ice. Goes cold, hot, cold. So it's like the most dangerous thing in the world. Thankfully, I never have to leave this room. I never do. I'm like Johnny Ive of Apple. I just sit in this room, one room. It's not a white room, but I just sit in here and do voiceovers all day. That's all I do now.
That's a content creator life right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I missed the wind upon my face.
Let's get into a little bit here. We have a good chunk of our updates at the beginning and top of the show before we jump into things. Got some people to thank on the sponsorship roles, some new patrons, and then we can get into a little bit more of who John is, what he does, and then we can get into the thick of why he's here, which is to talk Overwatch League strategic development within the final stages of Stage 1, and a little bit of a preview with what we might be anticipating on Stage 2. And John's been doing a lot of content on Overwatch League Daily just by saying, what do you guys think? He's been bringing on some guests in the scene that are analysts and or connected with coaches and staff, just what they think might end up developing. So what is first on the docket here with our update? We have the game night next weekend on the 23rd of February. Please show up. If you don't worry. There's lots of people that will show up. It's just a matter of how we're going to fit you in because there's so many freaking people that show. It will basically be going anywhere after noon Eastern time until whenever y'all decide it's time to finish.
The wee hours of the night.
Usually about 3 a.m. is about when things start winding down, not when things actually stop, which is a little crazy for you East Coasters. But that is the nature of having people that like me that live in Japan and people like Boom in Australia. Second up, we have our sponsorship continuing for I Need Peeling, aka Ben W. of Top Score Solutions. He's continuing his sponsorship to let you guys know about his free business consulting. Wow, I can't speak, Ben. Sorry about that. But free business consulting with the esports field. If you're an aspiring coach, team, you want to start your teams, you want to develop an app or a service, boost a subscriber base, you want to work in esports, or you even want to visit his website, you can check that out at topscoresolutions.com. Find him on Topscore Esports on Twitter or check him out on Discord. He has a master's in sports management and business and marketing experience and just wants to offer a free service to you guys in order to help you in the esports field. Furthermore, we have our other partner, not financially supported, but our man Switch over at omnicmeta.com has 2 meta reports over the course of the last week that he's put up. For the PC meta report on the 8th and the 15th, he has the console meta report. And if you guys don't mind, I'd like to kick it over to our guest to read the PC meta report. Just comments. I grabbed one big highlight of kind of like the big synopsis here. So, John, could you take that away?
Yes. So the PC meta report. I'm doing PC first, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So biggest changes after the patch, support meta, which should be no surprise, I would say. We're seeing a shift away from Mercy, Moira taking the place in most scenarios. One of the difficulties with Moira, obviously, is just being close, that kind of death ball type strategy. But phenomenal win rates is what we're seeing there from Moira, which is really surprising. And just overall, like utility and viability is just way up for a healer like Moira. So it's really nice, refreshing to see. Can't wait for Owl Season 2 for some of this stuff.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah. So we're also seeing a good amount of Ana and Zenyatta, though specifically Ana. Win rate's down a little bit. So Mercy's still good. Just not as good as she once was. That resurrect is a pretty big deal. However, down where I'm playing, still get Mercy mains all the time, right? So you're still good there. Yeah. The Ana and Mercy, this was interesting. I actually didn't know this until I read this. Ana and Mercy win rates are some of the lowest in the game. So
that's the cool thing about the meta reports.
It's
hard to assess anything before the changes come, and we love when Switch kind of sends us the reports, and we get to see some hard numbers of what is actually happening out there. And the truth is that yes, we see Mercy being picked less, but just like you mentioned earlier, she still has the ability to be able to fly to people like Pharah, to people like Genji, even Tracers that are like just hanging out in the back line. Mercy still has that mobility that Moira, even with her super huge extra Reaper thing, how do you call that? The Vanish?
Wraith Walk.
Wraith Walk? Yeah.
I like Wraith Crawl.
Wrist
It's like
crawl.
kind of spidery.
Spider
grovel.
crawl. There you go. Even with that, she's just not as mobile as Mercy. And she can definitely not get to heroes that are super far away. With Pharah, for example, Mercy's still the top healer, at least paired with that hero. But yet again, we're seeing just Moira be really strong with the more snowbally compositions like triple tank or people that can stay a little closer together. Her pair with a Lucio and a Roadhog, for example, are quite lethal.
And I wanted to like see what you guys thought about this too, because with anything, even Switch was saying this when we were chatting a little bit after he had posted these in our Discord. But anytime you see statistics, you have to see not only what it is, but like what you can infer from them. So like for this particular stat on the Ana Mercy win rates being lower, I think that you can also kind of pull out of this that not only are Mercy players having a hero that is significantly weaker in power level and in kit overall viability, but also they have to, in essence, relearn the kit again. And then you also have people that are trying to play the exact same way with a new kit. In addition, you also have people that are making the change to playing Ana that are, like myself, relearning the hero and getting back into a new meta with a new hero. There are significant adjustments that need to be made. And also, you can even infer that when you have these new things being played, that their win rates are going down because, additionally, allies aren't realizing how to play with a new Mercy or how to play with Ana because they've been playing with Mercy for so long, 6 months.
That's actually a really good point, and I've noticed that some of, like, in my personal playing experience, sometimes going to some of these games where you wouldn't see Ana, you would definitely see a Mercy and a Zenyatta or Mercy and a Lucio sometimes, but rarely Ana. And now you're starting to see them crop up more often, but you're not seeing the same level of play, right? Like a person that can play Mercy at a really high level doesn't mean that it can play Ana at a really high level, because intrinsically those heroes are incredibly different to play, right? In one, you're just targeting a beam-like heal and flying all over the place. In the other one, you're a hero with almost no mobility that has to aim all of your shots, like literally opposing skills right there.
Yeah.
There's
Andres, why don't you take... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I was just going to say there's also one more thing to realize too, especially with win rates, is that the more popular a hero is, the more centralized their actual win rate would be. If you have 100% pick rate on Lucio 100% of the time, your win rate's 50%, or probably a little bit less because you can draw. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to have a team that wins and a team that loses. So that's also something to look into as well. And you're looking at a center of a bell curve too. I mean, you know, like Andres is still trying to headshot his Ana. You know, like that is something that you can't. By the way,
I just can't take it away, man. I've trained myself.
just for those out, you can't headshot his Ana, but Andres can. So you know,
I'm still trying to. I'm still asking myself if the game is bugged or not.
Why am I not hearing that?
Yeah, why am I not hearing the cha-ching?
Not hearing it.
All right, Andres, take us away with the console meta report, and we'll wrap it up because it's basically the same stuff, but just a slight deviation.
For the console meta, it's just a little slightly different. The support meta definitely has seen the biggest changes after the Mercy Valkyrie nerf. However, Mercy still remains at the top play support, as the top play support on console followed closely by Moira. Talking about people who can't speak today. So this is very interesting, though. Or is it interesting? Because thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense that the top healers in console can be the healers that don't require the most hard aim, right? Like Ana on console is borderline impossible to play, in my opinion, unless you're just incredibly good with the controller. At least not as Mercy.
Well,
opinions here?
I don't really have an opinion. This is more of just like overall frequency thing. As pretty much any show that discusses the Mercy changes has said, Mercy pairs indefinitely still with Pharah, and Pharah is mega high on the pick rates in DPS category with the console meta report if you look at it. And so not just that, but also people have been playing at all ranks Mercy at a higher frequency almost since the beginning. So this is relatively unchanged. And again, too, when you have the overall assumption that shots are being missed a little bit more often on console, just over the large swath of every rank, when you have a damage boosting hero like Mercy, it makes each one of those shots that is landed count more. So it's just a little thing that potentially could be at play here. I'm not saying that is definitively the answer as to why this is happening. It could just be a lot of console people really like playing Mercy, and there's a lot of them. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, John?
I am a reformed console pro. I played ML, so I played Halo 2 competitively on the MLG circuit. I'm very passionate about console shooters. And I mean, ultimately, you highlighted it perfectly. At the end of the day, the more aim-forgiving heroes are going to be the best, all the way up to probably Master and Grandmaster. So, like, that's just how console shooters work. Just because you can turn around faster doesn't mean, oh, this skill is higher or faster or whatever. That's not what it's about. But it does mean that you have different considerations to take when you're picking a hero and picking a composition and finding your comfort zone in that. With something as invaluable as healing on console, you really want to make sure that you're not. I mean, a missed on PC, if you're missing shots as Ana, it's probably your fault. You're just bad, Andres. But on the other side, on console, there's a lot more to it. You can't flick very quickly unless you get one of those cool $80 things that let you just play with a keyboard and mouse on console.
Yeah,
there you go.
You filthy cheater. And then so I think at the end of the day, this makes a lot of sense. I think just having that overall through healing throughput for a base is really important on console. And Mercy's just not just the easiest, but the most efficient at doing it.
Yeah, definitely. It costs you the least amount of effort to put the most output healing with her. But one stat that that I'm noticing over here, and speaking of Moira, players are finding great success with her as she boasts some of the best win rates in the game currently on console. With Mercy and Moira competing for main healer, Lucio and Zenyatta are growing in popularity to fill out the off-support meta. So I guess we're seeing teams picking either Mercy or Moira, and then Lucio and Zen as the secondary healer in most of those matches. But I want to say that, at least in console, a big part of her win rate comes from the fact that you can actually cause a lot of damage with Moira. And in console, where aiming is a lot harder, and with Moira you have a lot more leniency, and you can target people from a relatively high distance, I'm willing to bet that these Moiras are having a big impact in the game. Not just healing, but being able to finish off certain picks, or being able to get those squishier heroes like Genjis or Tracers running around.
Absolutely. I think we could beat this to a death, as most other people can, very easily. So let's keep going. There is one thing that CS, our top 500 console PlayStation 4 player, wanted me to mention a couple weeks ago, and I keep forgetting. So I need to say it before I forget. Ana, a little while back, I want to say within the last 2 months, got a little bit of a hot fix to her aim assists on console. And so that when you're scoped and unscoped, landing shots on allies is significantly easier for healing. And there's not much more that I can give you on that. I mean, obviously the stats aren't lying to us here as far as like who has the win rates and who's getting the pick rates. So maybe they haven't quite figured it out yet because they just don't play Ana as often. But from some of the friends of ours in the console community that have been letting me know, Ana's actually been a significant jump in how much healing output she can actually perform. Because like you said, John, people don't suck at aiming in the top levels. Like, they're still really good. They can hit tons of shots. And when you make their job that much easier, that makes Ana's kit much more powerful. And last year on the updates is we still have the Overwatch League recap that got its new feed. And the reason we're mentioning it this week is that Andres and Justin were able to get a really cool interview with Baby Bay. And did you guys get Surefer this week or was that last week?
We had Surfer on a couple of weeks ago, but we have a very special episode coming out this week, actually, with all of the backstage footage from the press conferences. We got questions from the Outlaws, Spitfire, New York Excelsior. We were able to sit down with Harry Hook as well as Kai Kai from the Dallas Fuel, and all of that will be coming in like a one package episode. So if you guys want to hear all of the behind the news stuff, we got to ask them about how they felt from the games, who their best players were, and who they think was going to win the tournament. A lot of surprises. So definitely stay tuned for that episode on the Owl Recap. It's going to be very, very cool.
Awesome. Let's spend a little bit more time with John here. Let's get cozy. So, John, tell us a little bit about your projects right now. You can choose however you want to take this discussion. You can go more general. You can go specific to Overwatch, just whatever you'd like here. And you can even BM Andres some more, please.
Yeah.
Right?
Feel free.
I'll be known as the guest who just found ways to make fun of Andres the whole time.
Well, let's start a little bit with yourself. I know that a lot of people who listen to the show might be familiar with you, but some others might not. We have a big history with Overwatch. You've made a podcast before, and now you're making a second podcast covering the Overwatch League, which is very successful and is really interesting to listen to. I actually listen to it myself all the time. It's a nice little coffee and get out of the door quick little bite-sized chunk.
Yeah. So, about me, I've been podcasting for about 3 years. I do Well Meta Hearthstone podcast, did the Payload, which was, I would say, very similar in length to something like Omnic Lab.
Mm-hmm.
Just we did more like news and meta, and you guys, really, really focus on the strategy and do that really, really well. But my recent project is, as you said, Overwatch League Daily. The concept was pretty simple. I wanted super, super, super up-to-date info from Overwatch League from people who are authoritative in the scene. So bringing on, just in the past month, we've had on Hexagrams, Uber, Sideshow, Bren, just Overwatch League people. We've had Nuki, who's one of the best and most well-known Overwatch managers in EU, and Avril and Pixie guys from the Australian servers. And we've worked really hard to have this amazing network of contributors who it's not just interviewing and be like, so how'd you get into it? What are you doing? Like, and stuff, but it's saying, this game happened last night. Tell us why this person won. How is this going to impact the league moving forward?
It's very targeted, which I like a lot. You guys pick a topic and you bring in a guest that is very knowledgeable in the scene, and then you go hard on that topic, where it's a game or it's a piece of news, a new acquisition by a team. It's a very enjoyable format.
Yeah, thanks. It's it's all around this idea of 15 minutes a day. If I could give my dream pitch, I would love for it to be the ESPN of Overwatch League. And, something that when you're waking up, brushing your teeth, doing your hair for hours like Andres does and stuff, at least 15
It takes some effort to keep it like this, man.
Dude, I get it, man. It's like the Ted Mosby of podcast haircuts. Anyways, so 15 to 20 minutes, something that you can turn on every day. If there's an episode you don't like or a topic you don't necessarily care about, you don't lose 75 minutes or an hour and a half of your week. Instead, you lose 15 minutes out of your day, which, believe it or not, is a big difference. And so it's been an amazing time. I fully edit it, audio and video. It's produced end to end, and it's been an amazing learning experience for me. And it's been really, really well supported. The people at Overwatch League and teams and even just content creators themselves are really supportive of it and have really gotten behind it. And it's been really amazing.
Very cool. Yeah, if you're into the Overwatch League, definitely check it out if you haven't had a chance. It's a very cool little format, and I personally enjoy it quite a bit.
I must say that I really was happy to hear that Andres was able to book you this week, John, because I wanted to ask you, like, what was some of the the hardest things to adjust to this new format? I know we talked a little bit in the pre-show about the sleep schedule is basically entirely dedicated to the listeners. Like your sleep schedule is their pawn per se. And then also I wanted to ask you, what was like one of the biggest things that was like beneficial for you, like in learning? Maybe as a creator, also maybe as a player, something like that.
Yeah. So as far as go through the first part of your question again, so I don't mess it up. So I want to make sure I get it.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is the most difficult thing? I guess you could say like the learning curve in making the show production-wise, or like,
also because you're doing it.
Scheduling's a nightmare.
You're doing it daily, so we know what it takes to produce a show, even if it's only 15 minutes long. So we know that 15 minutes that you put out every day, it's more like hours out of your day that you're dedicating to that. How has that been?
Yeah, so I mean, it really comes. I would say the past 3 years have really prepared me for this. With my time with Well Met and the Payload, I got to understanding quite well the audio side of things, and then the video side of things and photo side of things, like via like OBS. But one of the hardest parts is how can you make consistent and up-to-date content for something like Overwatch League that, you know, again, if they play from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Mountain Time, how do I make sure that by 4:30 a.m. there's a show out there that is of high quality audio and video and features people and names who you actually care to listen to, like who have paid their dues to the community as being authoritative in some way or another. And some guests are more authoritative than others. I don't just have Overwatch League commentators on the show every day, but at least I would say once to twice a week, we have somebody who you would say is like a tier 1 authority, somebody directly involved in Overwatch League, somebody like ZP, Jason Kaplan,
who makes
whatever.
their livelihood off of Overwatch League, basically.
Yeah, and so honestly, it's the hardest part was sending the initial Discord messages and Twitter messages of like, "Hey, I'm making this show, and I would love for you to donate your time semi-consistently within 24 hours of within 5 hours of when a show or a stream wraps." For free. And you're like, how is this gonna work? And then from there, I mean, you know, the Twitter is about to pass up my personal Twitter as far as followers go on Twitter, and just people got behind it very quickly, and a lot of people were, you know, you really underestimate how many people really want to lend their analysis and their thoughts and their passion.
I totally agree with that.
Shows.
And I've had the same experience reaching out to a lot of these people, especially now that we were just in Burbank at the league. We were surprised by how open arms they were. Even the players, the coaches, they're all wanting to get out there, basically. They are invested in it. They want to grow with the community, and they want to let the community know that they're there. So I think it speaks loads for that community, and all the people there are super, super nice. They're very easily accessible. Even on Twitter, you can just tweet at them, and sometimes they'll just outright respond to you. And you're like, oh, cool, that's nice.
Yeah. So hardest part was checking my pride at the door. Then scheduling. Scheduling was the second thing, where my Sundays and Mondays are dedicated specifically to who's going to speak on what for the next 5 days. Who's going to help me record footage for the next 5 days, and you know, going through that. So
very cool. Very cool.
A lot of times I've found the scheduling to be hardest for our show as well. So I definitely personally identify with that.
Well, that is really because you decided to move to Japan and made it harder on all of us.
Here we go. Yeah. Pursuing a career sometimes sucks. We'll put it that way. All right, John, one more question for you before we get into the OWL thing. What has been some of the most, or what has been the high points? Like, what's the greatest things that have come out of production for Overwatch, even between the Payload and OWL, or just interacting with these great, players and great analysts and casters?
For me, it's always about the relationships. I've met more amazing people in the last 2 months and have built great friendships that honestly 3 years of doing Well Met in the Payload kind of hasn't gotten me. And a lot of it, again, was just that sheer like that willingness to just go, I'm going to send you a message and just see what happens. Out of every message I sent, 3 people said no. Here's their names in alphabetical order. No, I'm just kidding.
Here's their addresses and phone number as well.
I remember you're the one who said no. No, and it was always scheduling. At the end of the day, it was like, it's always scheduling, or it's like, actually, I'm getting a job at Blizzard and I can't tell you this, so I'm just gonna have to say no for right now, but you'll know in a couple weeks as to why. And so I would just say, like, the relationships overall. I really hope that the show itself ends up being kind of a bar for the quality of production that people can want and expect from a third party Overwatch League fan, where, again, fully produced in audio and video. It's an undertaking. It used to take me about 9 hours just to do a single audio.
Wow, I believe it. I believe it.
Sounds about right.
I've done it before. I've done content before, and I can believe it takes that long.
And thankfully, it doesn't take nearly as long now that you get like your processes down.
You find your
right?
workflow, absolutely.
You just know what that is and know where these things go. And when you're looking at your timeline and logic, oh, that gap's too long, cut it, and you don't have to actually even listen to it half the time. Like, there's a lot of ways where we've made it faster, but
it doesn't make it 1 hour. It still makes it like it's still long, people. You can't cut 9 to 1.
My bedtime is 4 a.m. That's all I'll say. My bedtime's 4 a.m. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's thank some people. We got some new patrons. We got some existing Diamond sponsors. So we got to say thanks to our existing Diamond sponsors. We got Ben K, Chris DePlaya. We got Good Apollo, who was actually with Andres at the ending stage finals.
He was
pretty cool guy.
A promoting machine. Seriously, we have to thank that guy.
We need to print him business cards.
I should give him all of my business cards, because for every time that I've forgotten to hand out a business card, he's hand out like 5 of them.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Apollo. It was great hanging out with you. He's a very entertaining dude. He's a very social dude. He honestly made a lot of friends for us during the trip. He's a great guy.
Absolutely. We also have Golden Soldier A, Great Root Bear, who was on the show last week. He's the guy that heads up the New York Excelsior watch parties in the Watch Point Cafe. We also have Kip, Lisom, Magic, Never Clutch, who is actually back as a Diamond sponsor. Wasn't prior because of the government shutdown, he told me. I was like, that's a good enough reason for me to not be a sponsorship of anything.
Yeah, we'll take that.
We also have Jan Jinko, who was also on the show last week, is my Duo Q partner. Ricky Tiki, Shazir, Top Score Solutions, of course, and Tragic Zach. Additionally, we have a new Diamond sponsor and new patron at all with Not Meta. He is a Masters level player that just joined our community like this week. So good to have new folks in the community. Thank you guys so much. If you want to support the show, please go over to patreon.com/OmnicLab. We got a couple perks here and there. We also have just some internal perks that you can get on the Discord community and some exclusive roles. It's not really about the roles. It's about just being friends. Like it's helping us build a relationship with our listeners. It's about the roles. John.
It's about that color.
Honored guest.
When you come to my Discords, it's about the roles. It's like first class, second class, sitting right in front of the toilet.
I'm at the third one, by the way. I'll just scored. So all right. Enough goofing around, enough thanking people. Y'all are great. We appreciate you. And if you want to support us financially, you can do it that way. We'll get into other ways you can support the show at the end. Next up, we have the Overwatch League Stage 1 final weekend, which means that we had to choose something to break down with the 14 maps that were played by London Spitfire. No, just kidding. The insane schedule that was the end of figuring out who is going to make the playoffs in addition to quarterfinals or semifinals, excuse me, and final game. So, Andres, you took the reins on this one. What's going on with this topic?
So I think today we thought we would bring you guys a little bit of a dissection of one of the games. We want to dive into some of the games, talk about some of the strategies, some of the team compositions that they used. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on Uprising versus Outlaws. Originally, we wanted to dissect a couple more of the games, but as I was extracting information from one of the games, I realized one of them was going to be enough, at least for an episode. And if you guys like the format, we will definitely continue to bring more episodes out here and dissect more of the strats and how they adapted to different things. I think it's very interesting and it's definitely very educational just watching the league. And if you watch it with some analytical eyes, you can learn a lot. And I think we have seen some improvement overall since the league started overall in comp. I don't know if it's me just imagining things or something, but people seem to know what to do a little better, and then they tend to form a little better. Have you guys had the same experience, or am I just imagining things?
John,
well, the silence speaks for itself.
What do you think, John?
There are definitely situations where, yes, I would totally agree with that. There are definitely also situations where I'm like, maybe not as much, or maybe, people rely too much on that. But yeah, okay. I won't. I've been hard enough on you already.
Commit already.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. This one goes through. All right, but let's get right into it. Uprising versus the Outlaws. First of all, we're going to go into Eichenwald. The first map, they kick things off. Outlaws starts with a very interesting composition. They start with a double hit scan, a McCree and a Soldier 76 with a dive tanks. They go with Winston, they go with Diva, they go with a Mercy, and they go with a Zenyatta, which is very, very purposeful because they're going up against Uprising, which has Dreamcasper, the king of Farah, and Eichenwald has become known, at least on the first point, as Farah's playground. If you notice, a lot of the maps that have a central pillar, like for example, Lijiang Tower in the Gardens that has that huge tower in it, or Eichenwald that has that huge pillar in the middle, right in front of the point, those maps tend to be incredibly good for Farah since she can stay up with their team but still get cover in the air. She's not unprotected like in a map like Junkertown, for example, where she's all out in the open. If there's a Widowmaker out there, there's just nowhere to hide. These maps actually offer a lot of cover, and we've seen it. Farah has been the hero to pick, and of course, Dreamcasper brings it out. He's known as the Lord of the Skies, or at least that's how I've named him, because every time he pulls out a Farah, nothing lives up there except for him. So this is what Outlaws does. They come out with a double hit scan. And if you guys watch the map, they take the first point rather quickly. Lixer just goes to town. He does a magnificent job of shutting them down, and they get that point. Did you guys get to watch this match at all? What do we think of that first point or that first map, Eichenwald?
So I think you nailed the Boston Uprising is by far one of, if not the best anti-dive team in Overwatch League, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how they're founded. Not only can they defend against the dive with their dive comp, they really well. They are also a phenomenal dive. You've got Gamsu and Striker basically attached at the hip. So what the Houston Outlaws do is they bring out double hit scan, and it is to take out Dreamcasper because he's kind of public enemy number one. Yeah. But you're also what you're doing here. You'll notice Linkster is constantly staying back. He's not directly involved, and even where normal McCree would position, he's
right
even farther back than that. His job is two things. Number one, to grab flankers, cough Striker,
and that Tracer.
And then also to deal with supports and help with what they're trying to achieve with getting Dreamcasper off of that Farah as quickly as possible. And that's what we saw there. They executed it perfectly. GG's Tyrong, you did it. checkmate. I get it. So it's really interesting how they utilize
for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they utilize Linkser as kind of you kind of have their defensive DPS and their offensive DPS, and Linkser will often play that defensive DPS where he's just there to make sure that whatever Boston's trying to do, his job is to try to thwart it, and that's by picking off Tracer, Mercy, or Zenyatta. Like that's that, and to a lesser point, like Junkrat as we get into later points.
Absolutely. I really love the dynamic between Jake and Linkser, because it's what you said. They both kind of alternate between being that offensive DPS and the defensive one. I think that Jake's comfort spot is the Junkrat, where he's really good at countering any of those dive heroes, the Winstons, the Genjis that go in there. And then you have Linkser that can swap into Widowmaker or Genji and go fully aggressive into their backline. And we see those swaps constantly between this match. We'll get into those as well. And Boston Uprising, like you said, they have an incredible dive, and several teams actually admitted to being scared of their dive because their dive style doesn't play like any of the other dive styles. If you pay attention to how their tanks play, their tanks a lot of the time are hidden from view completely, especially in those control maps we'll which get into later. But they have no visual of the enemy, and they're relying entirely on their DPS like Dreamcasper or Striker, which is usually in the backline with Tracer, to give him the go-ahead. Guys, they're in this place, let's go. And all of a sudden, you have these tanks diving from unknown locations, and they're on top of the backline or whoever they're diving, and it makes it really unpredictable for other teams. I think the Outlaws were mentioning this in one of their press conferences, how it was so hard fighting against them because their own tanks couldn't find the front line of this team. And we'll see this happen all the time. Uprising will go into the dive composition as their comfort pick. When things get tough, or when they need to clutch it out, when pressure starts to mount, you will see them go into a Genji Tracer with a Winston, Diva, Mercy, and Zenyatta. That is kind of like their bread and butter right there.
Yeah, they don't really change anything but their DPS at all.
Right.
Occasionally, you'll see on maps like Junkertown that require like an Orisa, great, yeah, sure, they'll begrudgingly go. But at the end of the day, it's the same for Winston, Diva, Mercy, Zenyatta, and then you see some play with the DPS. But even then, Striker mostly stays on that Tracer.
He mostly stays on Tracer for like 90% of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're very one-dimensional in their hero picks, but that doesn't mean that it's not an incredibly difficult strategy to repel. There's a reason why dive has been kind of on top of the meta in most maps for a long time, and it's because you can't just like prepare against a dive for the most part, unless you totally kind of try to do this weird Orisa death ball thing, and even then it's only semi-successful. So Boston has kind of made their put their stake, the flag in the moon there, and saying like, this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna be the best at it.
I think so. And I think that their flexibility comes from Dreamcasper. Like you said, their hero picks are generally inflexible in the sense that they're usually running the same tanks. Their supports change up here and there, but they're, again, very stuck in the Mercy. Mercy's running with them almost 100% of the time. And it's Dreamcasper, the one who's constantly switching. He's pulling out Pharah, he's pulling out Junkrat, he's pulling out a Roadhog. We've seen him also Reaper. He's kind of like the jack of all trades, a very versatile player, and I think that he's the one who's bringing in like those slight changes, but like you said, is mainly on their DPS. And to close out Eichenwald, that's basically what we see after the double hit scan. Uprising moves into their dive, their comfort zone dive. They go into Genji, they go into Tracer, and immediately Boston Uprising goes into their counter dive strat, which I've noticed is Jake on Junkrat and usually Linkser either on Tracer, or he might go on Genji, he might go on a Widowmaker. It really depends on what they need. In this particular map, they went into McCree Junkrat to finish up the last point on Eichenwald. They end up with a win on this map. They take it from Uprising. It looked really good for Outlaws in this first map. They were able to shut down Uprising quite well. Anything else you guys want to add on this map?
I mean, the big thing is point 3 there, like that's your stall egg. So it's not just like about anti-dive right there, but it's also just the fact that Junkrat and Orisa are really good on that last point. It's like in the beginning of the stage when we saw Zarya there all the time, because Zarya was really good there. And we still do see her from time to time on teams that have a really strong Zarya. So it's, the Outlaws basically, whenever they're on point 3 of Eichenwald, they're always bringing Jake on Junkrat because there's so little room.
Right, that last point is incredible for him.
Control.
Yeah, so there's so little, and then you have the Orisa to make sure that you have really clear sight lines for those DPS, and so you'll see them do that often on third points on even non maps with a payload that aren't Eichenwald.
Right.
That's correct. All right, you guys want to move to Anubis, the second map?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Anubis, tides change, actually. Anubis being a map known for the dive comp to thrive. It's an excellent map for dive. There's high ground, there's nooks and crannies, there's waits to get into the backline without being seen. There's health packs scattered all over the place. This is the Genji's playground, as I like to call it, because you can really go anywhere with Genji on this map. And you see Boston really be dominant in this map. We see them both start with a combination of Widowmaker plus Tracer on both sides, both on defense and on attack. That Widowmaker having that huge sight line and trying to counter the Widowmaker basically is that big fight going on between the both of them. Outlaws is able to take the first point and struggles quite a bit getting the second point, and they're not able to finish the map completely, only getting 1 point on it and changing into many very different comps. I think that they really were struggling in this one, smashing the heads against the wall, and they tried dive, they tried Pharah plus a Reaper, they tried Junkrat plus McCree, they even tried Genji and Jake. I'm starting to call Jake Junkrat because it's the same thing at this point. But he was playing Tracer. He actually played Tracer quite a bit in a few of these maps, but they just couldn't find a way, and Uprising just getting the best of them. Different story when it turns around, though, because on the attack, Uprising just does whatever they want with the Outlaws. They gain that first point really, really fast, and on the second point, we actually see a C9, or a step off the point for those of you who are not hip with the Twitch slang, and they lose the point quite fast. They were trying to run a counter dive, they forgot to step on the point, and Uprising just sneaks that point really, really fast.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game of chess between Jake, Linkser, and Dreamcasper, and to a lesser extent, Striker. But honestly, my MVP for this one is Gamsu. If you watch Gamsu on Winston, in the end, I mean, he had an amazing 4-kill on defense that was like probably one of my top 5 plays for the week. He just found ways to stay alive in situations that even Boston's initial take on point A on offense was because Gamsu like just found a way not to die. Like I've tried to do what he does all the time, and I always die. And for some reason, he's just like, "Oh, I'm still good. 200 health, we're good." And so it was really interesting to see, because you saw the Pharah Reaper right away, which Houston loves to run Reaper on point B offense. It's one of their bread and butter picks because you can get rid of tanks so quickly, which is usually something that has the most staying power. But thanks to Gamsu and Dreamcasper and Striker, Houston could never get set up. And then they all got caught into a corner on the right of the point when you're facing the point. They all got kind of caught into a corner, and then they just kind of C9. They're like, who's on the point?
Yeah, I guess they lack of communication there.
I hate the term C9, by the way. I hate it.
I'm not a fan either, but at this point, it's kind of like the low hanging fruit.
I'm just like, what else do we say? And they forgot to step on the point. That's just not.
C9 is just so much more efficient, you know?
It's efficiency.
It's just shorthand at this point.
Yeah, it's efficiency.
I am sorry, Cloud9. I really like you guys as an organization. I mean no disrespect, but it's just the way it goes now.
This is how the internet works, people.
One mistake. You make one mistake, and it will follow you
for the rest of your life.
It'll even follow your organization for the rest of your life. Now, I wasn't able to really capitalize on watching these two games because this was about 5 and 6 a.m. was around these games time. So I woke up at like 7 on a Saturday to watch the last 3. But I will say that, like, going back to the discussion of the dive and what John brought up with the style of play of both Dreamcasper in flexibility and Linkser in a defensive damage dealing role, it definitely is something that isn't exclusive to Eichenwald. It is a full team style of play when these two teams match up. And furthermore, I think Dreamcasper's matchup with other teams is, you know, of course, going to be always present with his flexibility, not just for how Linkser plays, because we've seen Linkser adjust his play style very, very efficiently and very well, depending on what roles he's expected to play, and also what heroes he's able to play, like McCree, hyper aggressive. We saw his hyper aggressive play on Eichenwald against London the next game, like the next set that they played. So I wanted to make sure that was something that I agreed with here because I wasn't really engaged in that discussion. But like
Dreamcasper and Linkser are the two best Western DPSs. Just
hands down
right now.
They are both incredibly good and versatile.
I couldn't pick one over the other. Probably Linkser. But
I'll probably go for Casper. I don't know. I just like that guy. I enjoy watching him play. When I see him play, it brings a smile to my face just watching the things that he does. Let's go into the next map because this next map is actually quite good for Dreamcasper. Going into Ilios against Boston, taking it 2-0. What an incredible match. And at this point, it's looking very hairy for the Outlaws. At this point, I was thinking, man, this might be it. I think I remember turning to the rest of the Owl Recap crew that was there with me, to Mel Arena, and being like, I'm sorry, Mel, but I think this is the end of the Outlaws. And she was like really mad at me. She was like, I can't believe
they played this map so well.
They did. And honestly, in this map, it's really when Boston Uprising was playing their game. And Outlaws were just trying to keep up with them. In that first map, in Ruins, we have both teams playing a Widowmaker and a Tracer, again with the dive tanks, Winston, Diva on both sides. Right. And the Widowmaker and Uprising was just so dominant. And we really see Striker come alive in this map. And you can see why a person who's constantly playing Tracer, and that is their main role, and they have a complete mastery on their hero, can outplay somebody who just has to flex into Tracer. Because we saw Jake try to flex into Tracer, but it was just not the same. Striker just getting the best of him a lot of the time and just basically doing whatever he wanted in that backline, while Widowmaker putting a ton of pressure for them. So in this first map, we just couldn't see much of the Outlaws. Striker, again, just getting the best of Jake. They played into the game in this map.
I think as you transition from map 1 to map 2, you definitely see not how there's any like one thing going wrong. I feel like for Houston, it's like the entire world is ending and they like can't stop it. You know what I mean? It's almost like this continual snowball going down the hill of a mountain. And when Dreamcaster's dealt with, Striker's killing them. And when Striker and Dreamcaster are down, Gamsu's sitting on their supports and the game's over. You know, something like that in kind of the situations that keep rolling over. I mean, with how they perform the dive and how Ilios is set up, this is arguably one of the best maps for Boston overall, I would say. because of how easy it is for them to maneuver in such an open area. And when you get into map 2, especially, this is like another Pharaoh's Playground type of a map with the environmental kills in the well. And on the lighthouse. Well would also pertain to this, but regardless, they didn't have to go play the well because they just won 2 very, very quickly, very, very efficiently. And the other side of the coin on this argument, or this kind of like topic with Koth in particular, is historically this is something that Outlaws just haven't figured out as a team how they want to play it. I don't know why it's taken them an entire stage, and if it maybe is a Mercy related thing or a team composition synergizing effort, but they cannot seem to play Koth. And then you have that running up against the dichotomy with Boston excelling at it. So you're basically putting a team at their worst against a team at their best and saying what's going to happen. And it's like, you could predict this with 100% accuracy most of the cases.
It truly felt like that. It was funny that you mentioned that, because in the press conferences, they asked Outlaws how they felt about Boston and certain control maps, and they brought up the fact that they don't feel very comfortable in control maps, and they were very honest about it. They were like, honestly, if anybody knows how to play a control map and would like to tell us how to, you are welcome to, because we have no idea. And they joked about it. They're a team that can adapt very quickly and has a lot of creativity. They admitted that they're a team that comes up with a lot of strats on the spot, and sometimes you can see that just quick team compositions that we're not expecting. Sometimes they'll work and catch their opponents by off guard. Sometimes they kind of fall flat. I think in this particular map in Ilios, it fell a little flat. On the second map in Lighthouse, I think that they decided not to play Uprising's game anymore and instead try to counter it, pulling out a McCree and a Tracer, since they knew that Dreamcasper was more than likely going to bring out the Pharmacy, but still, it just didn't quite work out. The Lord of the Skies came out superior there, in thanks to a big part to Gamzu and his tank frontline. They were just tearing it apart on this map. Very, very good stuff. Moving on to the fourth map, though, story changes. On Dorado, the Houston Outlaws, they're not ready to give it up, and they bring it back from the ashes, because the map ends 3-2. It was really close. Uprising could have won the match right here and there. I was clenching my cheeks on the chair in this one, because I wanted both teams to go through, but only one could go through. Let's go on the attack side at first, because we have a very, very interesting attack from the Outlaws. They bring out a Junkrat, a Widow, and a Hog with a single healer. They put Rakas on the Hog, and they take out only their Mercy, while keeping Jake on the Junkrat and Linkser on the Widowmaker. I thought it was a pretty cool team composition. They also brought out an Orisa, and they also brought out a Diva. So very heavy composition to get through the choke, as Uprising was also playing a very heavy choke composition, again with the Junkrat, Widow, and Hog. Seems to be the preferred heroes on this first point, just to make that choke point really, really beefy. Nothing can get through. Tons of damage coming in from the bombs. If the Junkrat doesn't kill you with mine, then the Widowmaker will finish you off with a body shot, or anything else is quite lethal. Anything you guys want to add in this one?
It was just really interesting. I mean, in the end, you saw Boston put up a pretty good defense on this one, right? It took them almost 3 minutes to get to point A, and I don't think Houston was prepared for Boston to run basically the mirror composition on defense.
On defense,
I think they expected them to run their traditional dive, which this obviously their composition of Jake on Junkrat and Roadhog and Diva and Orisa is designed to really punish the dive, especially in the choke. There's just so much damage going out, and honestly, I think it wasn't luck. Luck is the wrong word for it, but it was a flip of a coin as far as if Boston full holds there, or if Houston takes that first point. So, even
Definitely
though
a couple key picks.
Yeah, even though like Boston ended up giving it up, I actually give the edge of play, especially on that point A, to Boston there.
Boston did a really, really great job. And props to them because I think that you're exactly right. You hit the nail right on the head. Outlaws were really banking on Uprising to pulling out that dive composition, which is actually incredibly good on all points of Dorado. Any stage of this map, that dive with Genji and Tracer works really well just based on terrain. But Uprising did just the opposite, and is what you did. They brought almost like the mirror comp on the other side, except that they did have a dual healer. They didn't come up with just a single one. But on the attack, they tried switching it up even more. Uprising on the attack brought out a protect the precedent strategy with an Orisa Bastion that I think Outlaws was not expecting at all. And it was not until the second point that Outlaws are able to stop that Bastion protect the precedent strat. And only then is when Uprising feels the pressure and they go back into their comfort zone. And that's when Outlaws are finally like, I got you. This is exactly where we wanted you guys.
3.
Now we can pull out the Junkrat with Jake. We can put the Linkser on McCree. And this is what we've been expecting from you guys. This is what we've been practicing. And you can see it on that last point. Outlaws has an amazing hold. Uprising just couldn't find their footing. And their dive just couldn't work against that Junkrat.
I think there's something interesting on that final push too, because this is kind of where I actually would point to this particular map as well as the entire finals between London and XL with why you don't want Mercy to be able to resurrect 2 people per fight with the Valkyrie. Like, you're basically able to see so much of this fight where people are just out of position, and then the ones that get out of position while being aggressive, confirming kills, and then getting rezzed are the ones that are actually like doing their jobs more efficiently because they're confirming a kill and getting rezzed, whereas the other team would be confirming a kill and dying and not getting rezzed. And that's like where fights are, breaking down. And now we're going to be able to see a little bit more safe, clinical style of play where people cannot be playing this aggressively on both defense and offense in order to defend or move a cart. So I don't know. I just feel like it was kind of like exhausting to watch this final point because there's moments where like Boston just does a complete insanity play, or even Houston does an insane play, and then the game's just like, nope, those 2 picks are moot. You know what I mean?
So that did happen a couple of times. Fortunately, come stage 2, we won't see a lot of that happening.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that one. Let's do the last map since we're kind of running a little long over here. But this last one, it was actually very surprising. Outlaws finally bringing it back on a control map. And I think that Legion Tower is a very interesting map. It's one of the only control maps where Reinhardt actually gets picked. And we've seen it on Control Center, that map with the close quarters, a lot of kind of like choke points. Reinhardt tends to do really well. We've seen it being pulled out by a lot of the Korean teams, and Outlaws, I think, capitalizing on that. They're bringing in the Reinhardt with a Zarya, a McCree, and a Junkrat, and they quickly taking that point. Uprising with their dive had no business, and I think that this first point was a clear Outlaws win, and everyone was really surprised because they were like, wow, is Outlaws really going to bring it back over here? On Garden, they both go Pharmacy dive. And in this one, Dreamcasper is able to get the best out of them. I think that the Pharah map was just too much for the Outlaws to handle. They just couldn't counter the Pharah from Dreamcasper. They tried a lot of things, but just Jake on the Pharah didn't line up quite exactly. And it's only in the last map, Night Market, where the Outlaws are finally able to bring it back. They put Jake on the Soldier 76 to counter Dreamcasper's Pharah, which actually works out pretty well. They forced Dreamcasper to jump back on the Genji, and they just couldn't do it. It came to the last second. Jake had a couple of dubious ults in this last map. He kind of just tactical visor some stuff. I think it was like one hero that got killed. He killed, but it ended up working out in the end. He even did a tactical crouch. That's what people were calling it. Did you guys get to see that?
I saw it against London for sure, but I didn't see it in this particular map. It was kind of off camera.
Oh, maybe I'm
for just a
confusing
split second.
matches. I can't remember if it was in this one or the London Spitfire, where he kind of like teabags one of them, but everyone's just calling it tactical crouch.
Tactical crouch. On
Yeah.
there. Yeah. I will say that like for this map, it was fascinating to me to see how point one, when they're in control center, looked just absolutely surgical with how the Outlaws just dismantled them. And then you get over to Gardens, and it's like the exact opposite story, where Boston's completely like putting on a clinic against Houston on this map. And then you get the last one, and it's like actually super close. So I feel like for me, the story of all three of these maps was how well Cool Matt could control the pace of what was going on in every team fight. Like Cool Matt's Zarya was huge in first map, reasoning behind how he was able to get charged, how he was working in concordance with Muma's Reinhardt. And then on point three, it was also his diva play and matrixing some pretty big plays, and able to really give Jake enough time to kill Pharah when she would tee up a really well operated. They did like a pincer drop down from the sky out of the window barrage, and Cool Matt like flips on a dime with a matrix, and Jake was able to get a helix off on cooldown. It was just like a super well contrived reactionary play that could have very well changed the entire outcome of this whole set just on that one play.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on this one, John?
I mean, for me, it all came down to Night Market. And I personally, I don't agree with the Pharah pick at all in the first place by Boston Uprising. At the end, it wasn't even just that Jake countered Pharah, because in the sense of Jake killed Pharah and therefore Pharah couldn't do anything, how a lot of people think of countering, Jake only killed Dreamcasper once on the Pharah, but they were able to zone Dreamcasper so well. Night Market makes it so difficult for you to get meaningful angles that essentially Dreamcasper spent the first 2.5 minutes going net even on kills and deaths. And that's just not, you don't run Pharah to have that happen. And they should have switched faster. I think if they would have, I think that there's a good chance that this might have ended up differently, but instead we had Dreamcasper, and his kills, even then, not a single one of his kills were on a support. Not a single one. And that's what you really need those Pharah rockets to bring a Mercy or a Zenyatta either down so low that Gamsu is finishing them off, or that you kill them outright. And on Night Market, there's just way too many places for a support player to avoid damage from a Pharah. And so I think that they wanted to put their head against the wall because they felt that they had the advantage, because typically a Soldier 76 isn't just enough to counter a Pharah like
with a Mercy
Dreamcasper
behind her too.
Right.
Yeah, between a Zenyatta orb and a Mercy there, like there's so many ways for a Pharah to survive, and we just didn't really see that. And they kept trying to make it happen because they saw the hypothetical mismatch despite how it was actually practically playing out for them. And they were
I think
too
so.
slow.
And I think they were trying to ride their momentum, and they might have gotten a little bit tunnel visioned in this last map because they were riding high from Garden, right? Where Dreamcasper had such a dominant showing. I think they were able to get 99-0 at first before the Outlaws were even able to cap the point once on Garden. So it was just a great map for them. And I think that after that win, they really just wanted to play it safe, and they were like, Casper, you stay on the Pharah, let's go. And it's what you said. Houston was just really smart on the way that they engaged. It was not necessarily that Jake got to play outplay Dream Casper in the air with Soldier. It was more that their positioning made it really, really hard for Casper to get any value. And by the time that he realized that it was not being effective, I think that he held on to that Pharah for a little too long. Because of that confidence, right? And by the time he got into Genji and he was able to get back in there and cause some damage, it was a little bit too late. The Outlaws just had the momentum at that point.
Yeah, you could even see just how many forced support ultimates from the Zenyatta's on both sides were like very one-sided on Boston's side, where like Muma and Cool Matt were just going on it with having some backline support from Linkser and or Jake, depending on where he was positioned at the time, versus Dream Casper, like John was saying, to his point, going even and not killing supports. Raucus is able to survive long enough, and not having any pressure means that Transcendences are getting full value. They're not getting forced value. They're not getting just minimal healing done for the team. They're actually being able to be utilized as a counter for an engage. But we are going really long, and we've got quite a ways to keep going here, so let's keep moving. I'm going to take the reins here, if you don't mind. We're going to go into the blue post in news. So some of this is going to be a little bit more rapid fire because a lot of this is going to be written content. So we're going to be looking for more opinion-based pieces and reading what Blizzard is saying in their development comments rather than what the changes specifically will be. You can check those out on the links in the show notes. First thing up here is there's a hotfix for Lucio for the dropping the flag when he starts wall riding for CTF because of how polarizing the games we're getting. The further up on the ladders you would go as far as the competitive version of this in the arcade. Not much really to comment on here because it's not anything inside of the competitive modes. It's more of like a seasonal thing, so we're not going to spend too much time here. Currently, there is Overwatch free weekend, so by the time you're listening to this, it's likely over, so we're not going to spend too much on this, but it's just good to know when free weekends are going on. John wants to say something here.
It is also half off.
If you've been meaning to buy that alt account, this is your chance.
Yeah.
And my co-host actually just told me he wanted to get Overwatch, but was waiting for it to go on sale and run another test on the weekend. So I'm really excited that Grant's going to be able to play Overwatch.
Yeah, same with my girlfriend. After the league, she was like, "Oh, I kind of want to play Overwatch." I'm like, "Okay, well, this is a good time. This is a good time to choose to play."
Sweet. All right, so here's the first thing: is there is a new developer update on the PTR. There are 3 things that are actually targeted and instituted on the PTR, and there are mentions of 3 more additional heroes that are either in the works or in talks of being adjusted. So we're going to go through the ones that are adjusted first. The first one is Doomfist. It's got a slight adjustment on his hand cannon. First, he has the ammo recovery rate. Basically, the amount of time it takes before a charge is given back to him after firing. He basically can fire 4 rounds if you're unengaged with playing Doomfist. And then about 0.8 seconds will be about how long it takes for you to get another charge back before you can fire again. And now it's down to 0.0 or 0.65 seconds per bullet. So this change basically is designed to be more consistent with allowing him to be able to duel things and not like basically feel like he's getting his pants down when he engages and not having anything to do. Any comments on this before we move on? I feel like this is more of a consistency level change.
I like the changes. I think that they're slowly refining Doomfist. He already seems like a really solid hero. I've been slammed to the ground by a couple of Doomfists lately who have improved quite a bit since he first came out. So I'm just happy that, they're just sharpening the edges there.
Okay, and then with Mei, we have a slight adjustment on her endothermic blaster. We actually got a slight preview of this on the live servers before they hot fixed it. First of all, she has a weapon that is adjusted on the ammo for her endothermic blaster on the right-click firing icicles, or the alternate fire if you're on consoles. Basically allows you to get each shot is going to take 20 ammo instead of 25, so you can get 10 shots per clip instead of 8. And the freeze, this is kind of a complex one, so I'm going to mention this because I was actually really confused on this before I talked to Spider of OWLN, who was testing this and figuring it out. Basically, the slow, when you use the freeze spray, so if you're spraying somebody down, trying to freeze them, the duration of the slow is now going to be up from 1 second to 1.5 seconds. That does not mean they're going to be frozen and unable to be moved, completely immobilized for 1.5 seconds or 1 second. That's not what it's referring to. It's referring to when the target is moving and they get the first to the last application of being slowed. That will last longer of the slow to 1.5 seconds.
So
They
does
should call it thaw. It's like the time it takes to thaw from when you're slowed by freezing.
Does this also take into account, like, when you tag somebody with May with your freeze, then it takes a certain amount of time to get him completely frozen solid. But let's say you freeze somebody and they move out of your line of sight. Does that mean you still have 1.5 seconds from that first tag to re-tag him again and continue that freezing timer? Is that what that means?
That's what I was hoping one of you guys would ask, because what it does is when the last piece of the spray touches, because as you know, there's like a slight increase in the reduction of speed before the freeze, because it's kind of like slowly freezing them and they're frozen, right? That's kind of the whole lore of how this works, right? And the mechanic. But when the last part of the freeze, wherever the lead up finishes, whether it's low or high, there's a time period of 1 second prior. Now it's 1.5 seconds of how long that slow is left if you're not trying to freeze them.
Okay, that's actually
nice. To thaw. That's what it is. Thaw.
This actually
how long does it take before you get thawed?
Actually, we have a little excerpt from Jardio audio clip that he sent us. He is one of our May experts. I'm gonna go ahead and play it over here because he can probably describe this change better than we all can.
Let's do it.
I believe these two buffs for May are a lot more beneficial than most people seem to realize. Reloading is definitely a big hindrance to May during a team fight, as casting one of your abilities will cancel your reload and you must begin with forcing the reload animation again to complete it, as well as the fact that one headshot with May can be a big deal. Although I have had limited play testing with this new buff, there have already been many occasions where the last couple shots / freeze in my gun made the difference between a kill or not. The second buff, in which the slow duration is increased, is quite effective against high mobility heroes such as Genji and Lucio, as these heroes can easily create enough space for themselves to end the freeze / slow timer prematurely. With this buff, it will be easier for May to be able to not only catch up to these heroes, but continue to finish the freeze timer without it resetting. Also, this buff will make the freeze plus ult combo more consistent and not as difficult to pull off. Overall, I think these buffs will have a decent impact on May's kit, benefiting her overall contribution to teamfights as well as duels.
Very cool. I really like that these are very subtle changes, but is what he said. The slight increase in timer might make her a little more effective against Tracers, against Genjis, against Lucios, characters that by themselves are kind of sneaky and have an easy time getting away from May, and getting that freeze debuff out of them, making it almost impossible to sometimes freeze some of these heroes. Like if you've ever tried freezing a Tracer with May, you know that is borderline impossible unless the Tracer at some point messes up.
I like what he said about the chaining effects with the endothermic blaster mixed with the blizzard, because what happens is you have a full second between letting go of your primary fire, throwing the ultimate, and then the travel projectile from going wherever you throw it to the distance before it lands, and then that freeze begins. Basically will allow you to get a good chunk of a slow done on the target, chuck the freeze on the blizzard, and then they will be chained to be frozen longer in the ultimate rather than it starting as a fresh 0 to 100 on the freeze. And
they'll
then
be frozen almost immediately.
Right. So it's really great if you when you want to, like, say you have like 2 or 3 people in an area and you're trying to eliminate the supports or eliminate the DPS, you can actually focus the blaster on a Roadhog, for example, slow him way down, and then drop the blizzard like immediately at his feet. So he's just totally frozen, and then you can just ignore him and go straight for the priority targets. Or on the other side of the coin, you can just go straight for the priority targets to begin with. So the last thing here we have is Sombra. And then after I cover Sombra, I'll ask John and Andres to kind of give their opinions on this, and we'll close it. So Sombra, we got another thing on Fitzy. He was not able to send us an audio clip, but he has a video that we linked, and I'm going to go over his thoughts on this. So the basics are EMP no longer blocked by small objects like signposts or pillars. The whole area is EMP'd in LOS. It has to be blocked by significantly sized objects. Hack no longer gains ultimate charge from health packs being healed on allies. This is a big change. Cast time is being reduced from 0.8 seconds to 0.65 seconds, similar to the recharge rate of Doomfist. This is how long you take before the hack is applied. It will also disable more abilities. Genji Cyber Agility passive, which includes double jumping and wall climbing. Hanzo's wall climb. Pharah's hovering jets, not just the jump jet, but the hovering jet. Mercy's angelic descent, which means she can no longer slow fall. She just drops. And Lucio, both the healing and speeding boosts are disabled, and it turns off the current song. Basically, you get to steal Lucio's MP3 player, which is awesome. And you can also take away his wall ride. The other things here are the machine pistol spread got reduced by 10% from 3 to 2.7. And the translocator now has 5 more seconds, up to 20 seconds, how long it takes before the translocator gets to disappear. So what does Fitzy say? I'm just going to not have my opinion on this one, just share Fitzy's thoughts, and then you guys can comment. EMP, not that big of a deal, to be honest. Adds more consistency, fringe, things that feel glitchy, just more consistent. Hack. This feels very fair as far as the no longer gaining ult charge and being able to farm your EMP. It's more in line with other heroes by farming your abilities based off of damage dealt with your primary gun. That works really, really well. So just use your weapon more and try to get those shots. The hack time doesn't seem that big of a deal at first for the overall change going a little bit faster, but now he said that you're going to be able to use the hack as a reaction rather than a preemptive movement. Saying if Lucio's doing a beat drop, there's a long enough lag time before he jumps and lands and it applies that you can hack it and turn it off after he uses the ability and basically completely negate the ultimate altogether without relying on EMP. Additionally, stuff like he also said that there's a chance that you might be able to get this just a second faster off against Reinhardt's that are using Hammer Down. And Torb turrets actually timing it between their shots. This is faster than the shots go from one to the next. New hack targets, Mercy and Pharah, big deal. If they're flying over dead space against Sombra, get punished. Lucio, a lot easier to deal with when he's stalling cart or stalling point. You can actually deal with him as an additional new counter. The rest of the targets that have the new things with Hanzo and Genji, not as big of a deal. Opportunist. This is the thing that I actually forgot to mention. Great. This basically means that anytime somebody is hit by damage, whether they're 99%, 50%, or 5%, you can see them through walls. He said this is what's called a buff nerf. It means it's great because you can see where anybody is, like a wall hack from Widow, as long as they have damage. But it's kind of a nerf where you don't really know which of the targets that you can see through the walls are low health, or basically an opportunist. An opportunist can take advantage of low health targets and go for them as a priority. So I said buff nerf on this one. Translocator, again, buff nerf said that having 5 seconds longer means if you throw your translocator and it's not in a spot that you really want to go, you have to wait another 5 seconds and be delayed a little bit longer. On the other side of the coin, if you put a translocator where you want, you have a little bit more wiggle room to get there and kind of wait out abilities and enemy movement. And that's it. What do you guys think?
John?
I mean, ultimately, like for me, this seems like a lot of changes that make her a little bit more fluid of a character to play. And I think something that Sombra has really struggled with is being a fluid character. Even if some of these changes are, you know, as you said, buff nerfs, right? Where it's not just always a buff. I think at the end of the day, it's a little bit more obvious how Sombra is meant to be played and makes her a little bit more universally viable. So overall, strong changes. It's going to take some getting used to as far as not generating ult charge from
the health packs.
That's, in my opinion, the biggest change. But besides that, I mean, yeah, strong changes.
I definitely agree. In general, this is going to make Sombra more reliant on the hack. You're going to be looking more for those clutch hacks, you know, where you can take away the Reinhardt shield, where you can get away with hacking the Winston or the Diva before they use their boosters or jump and then they're caught in the middle of the enemy team, or, you know, hacking that Zenyatta Ultimate or the Zarya Graviton, all these things like that are super clutch with Sombra. She's gonna revolve a lot more, and she's gonna be able to pull it off a lot more constantly. The way I see it is now, if Sombra is behind you and she starts to hack on you before you're looking at her, she more than likely will get it off before you can turn around. Whereas before you still had that really tiny window of opportunity to look back. I feel like now you're just gonna have to like 180 shoot and hope for the best at this point.
Something I really liked about Fitzy's opinions here is that since the change, you know how they kind of put this on the main servers before they hot fixed it on accident, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was playing with it a little bit as much as he could before they hot fixed it off. And then also, if you go and tune into his stream or his YouTube channel, he's constantly saying, I had my translocator for 5 more seconds there. That could have been the game ender, or I could have killed the Mercy there. Or he's constantly reevaluating when he's doing plays by what the change could, or by what changes could have been.
That's cool.
Given
That's
the
a
information
good way
we
to
now
see
know.
it. One thing that he says that I didn't even think about is how the translocator increasing time might actually be detrimental in certain positions. And I hadn't even thought about it from this perspective, but having your translocator be stuck in one location for 5 more seconds, that means that you are committed to that location for a little longer. And sometimes it has happened to me playing Sombra, where I preemptively place my translocator and I think, okay, this is a good position, but then the way that the fight plays out ends up being so that when you translocate, you end up maybe in the opposite side of your team, or the fight is just not there anymore. So you're suddenly in a very irrelevant position that just adds no value. You might be just too far to provide anything. So I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective, but the added in 5 seconds duration does mean that you have to be a little more picky of where you throw that thing.
Mm-hmm. Important to note too, when anytime you speed up the cast time or like cast time of an ability like hack, that does mean that you're having that little tiny window, not only of the cast time getting off, but because there's twofold response to hack when you use it, it is broken by damage. So you have a less window that you have to actually dodge abilities in order to get the hack off. So that, removes a little bit of the margin for error for getting the hack to work for you. And second, he also said that when he plays Sombra, hacking the health packs basically just means that you're not getting your EMP faster or farming it off of this. It doesn't mean that you don't hack health packs anymore. Like, denying health packs is still a utilitarian effort for your team, as well as where you want to play Sombra in the stylistic way of translocating back to the health packs in order to take advantage of getting back into the fight quicker.
Oh, for sure.
John, did you have any other thoughts on any of these other changes too? Maybe you can even take the reins on the heroes if you'd like to transition us into Hanzo, Symmetra, and Torbjorn.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in the developer update some changes that they were playing around with Hanzo, mainly around his scatter arrow. They did some really cool different, like there's one where he was like he could shoot really fast. There's another one where they changed it to
piercing arrow, I think is what they called it.
Piercing arrow went through like shields and stuff, and so there's a lot of cool stuff there. But basically, right now it sounds like they're looking at rapid fire, if I remember correctly, where you can shoot multiple arrows in quick succession. So I don't know. That was pretty cool.
That could be like a cool, interesting middle ground solution, right? Because the thing about scatter right now is that it's erratic. It's a little random. It feels bad for sometimes the person who gets killed. Rapid fire might address the same issue where Hanzo lacks burst damage, right? Like the only thing he can do is get headshots with his arrow, and that's about it. Scatter is kind of like that burst damage where he can target tanks or shields or any of that type of thing and actually do significant damage. So being able to fire 5 consecutive arrows at a really fast pace might actually be what he needs, while not necessarily making it so random. He's still gonna have to aim all of those arrows, right?
I don't know how I feel about snipers with burst damage. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Burst damage is the headshot, right?
Yeah, right.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So but at the same time, I mean, it's clear that right now Hanzo probably could use some help, and subsequently the other 2 heroes, Symmetra and Torbjorn. Turrets are tough, man. Like, turrets are really tough to balance right. Make them too powerful, and you take the skill out of the game. Make them not powerful enough, and then why are you running turret hero unless you're a scrub, Andres? So,
and man, something has to aim for me.
It's true.
Somebody's got to play it.
On console, I remember the first couple months when I would spend a good amount of time on console, how strong turrets were.
Oh, I remember.
Like Torbjorn, because like,
Torbjorn,
again,
even
like,
on
you've
PC,
got something aiming for you.
Yeah. I totally agree. And now they're looking into these heroes. I really like that they're taking the time to go into the heroes that have not received as much playtime, and they're really having a critical look at them and thinking, okay, how do we make him fit their niche a little better, and how do we make him a little more popular without breaking the balance of the game. And I like that they're not afraid to redesign some of these heroes, right? It really goes to show that Blizzard wants to keep improving this game and keep iterating on it, not just leave it at what it was. And now they're going into, the heroes that are not as popular, but still deserve some attention.
This is what your skins are paying for.
There you go.
Consistent balance changes.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, let's wrap it up. We got a long show. Some of y'all might be fatigued. Some of y'all still in your cars on those 3-hour commutes. And then big semi-truck drivers, I'm telling you, those guys put in the work that some of us don't like doing, and I appreciate you. So thank you for listening to the show. We'd like to appreciate some more people that have been giving us a little bit more help and support on iTunes. You guys are great. We got 4 new iTunes reviews on US from Nutcase, Kirby, Shafty, and Buck. Thank you guys so much for your USA reviews. And also, we have a German review from Scene Girls. Thank you guys so much for your support and feedback on this. It really helps the show, and it's free. So if you want to help the show, please do that. It helps us a lot. And moving forward, we also have other ways that you guys can support the show financially beyond Patreon and free with iTunes. You guys can support us on Twitch. We're Twitch affiliates. So you can go over there and sub. We got one new sub icon. It's pretty neat. I had to design it. I did make an adjustment to it, but I'm not happy with how it panned out, so I'm still working on it. If you guys want to find anything else that has to do with the show, we've got Twitter, Patreon, Twitch, YouTube, and merch, including this. If you're on the live stream or on the YouTube page, we have nice mugs. We got a hoodie. I just got reported this week, not in game, but from one of our patrons, that the hoodies are comfortable, in fact.
Awesome.
And you guys can go check those out.
Very glad to hear that.
If you want to find us and all of those things, omniclab.com/links. If you like communities, please head over to Overwatch League Daily. If you want to talk about esports, it's a great place. I believe it's discord.me/Overwatch League or
OWL Daily Show.
How about you do your plugs over here, Jen? Where can people find you and your shows?
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitter, Twitch, and everything. For Overwatch League Daily, overwatchleaguedaily.com, you can find links to everywhere there. But we're on YouTube at youtube.com/KickedTripod. Just crossed 1,300 subs today.
So, nice. Congrats.
Discord.me/OWL Daily Show, Twitter.com/OWL Daily Show. Make sure to come by, hang out. It's a really good time, especially if you are passionate about Overwatch League.
Definitely. If you want to join our community is also at discord.me/OmnicLab. Andres, where can people find you?
If you personally want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. And you can also find me talking about Overwatch League on the Overwatch League Recap, or the L Recap, however you want to call it, with Bob, Mel, and Justin. You can find that on iTunes or any other of your favorite podcasting apps.
If you want to find me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram with the tag NotRob. You want to find some Hearthstone shows, you can check out Well Met with John, or you can check out Velen's Chosen with my crew. This week, we are talking all kinds of crazy stuff with new meta changes, new meta shifts. We had a huge nerf going on. I know John had a lot of fun with that one with his crew. I listened to their show this week. It was great. And also, if you want to check out more stuff in the Twitch atmosphere, I'm trying to get my stream off the ground here. I'm still not quite sure what's going on with the internet. I'm trying to figure out why the high-speed internet is gating me to playing Dragon Ball Z on my on my freaking game. For whatever reason, I have to play it in offline mode. So we'll try to figure it out. Maybe I can get some other variety streams your way. And a special thanks to Never Clutch, who just subbed with a Twitch.
Never Clutch! I think you are always clutch.
Anyways, guys, this has been a long show. It's been great. John, thank you so much for joining us, especially
Thanks
on
for
short
having
notice.
me.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And good luck to your efforts. And in stage 2, when the season goes nutty, good luck. I know that we're going to be right there with you.
Send Red Bull. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. See you next week.
Thanks to everyone in the chat, guys. You always make it a pleasure to be out in here. Omnipack, Never Clutch, Drunken Monk, Silver Lucky. You guys are great. Good Apollo was in the chat too. You're always with us, man. You're a great guy.
Jardio showed up for a little bit.
Jardy was over here spamming some lulz.